You know, when people ask me why I still play the older games in the Elder Scrolls series, I tell them that it's because there really aren't games that are much like them. You know, like I said before, Arena is a great game if you just want to play a really, really dumb, like not a lot of thought required RPG that still has a decent amount of depth to it. You know, it's a stupid game, but it's a stupid game that's fun to play. It's charming in its own little way. And Daggerfall is one of the most complex computer RPGs I've ever played. It's basically a one-man game of Dungeons and Dragons, with all the little weird quirks that would come with. You know, and I think that part of the reason why the Elder Scrolls series is so endearing to me, and the reason why it's lasted so long, is that every game in the series is completely different from the ones before it. You know, compare this game to Skyrim and see how far we've come. Now, sure, Arena's not an entirely original concept. Like, it's basically Ultima Underworld, but with a different setting. And I believe that they used a modified version of the Doom engine even to get these dungeons to work. But, you know, it's a fairly... I don't know, I suppose it's just a fairly open concept for an RPG. It's an early start for a promising setting. And, you know, look where it's come since then. Daggerfall is a very complex game for people who really, really like RPGs. Morrowind is sort of an in-between game. You know, it wasn't a huge game at release, but it was big enough that it set the defining standard for RPGs for a little while. And it was this like weird middle ground where it wasn't quite as complex as... Oh shit, I don't have enough spell points. That's not good. But yeah, Morrowind was like in this middle ground where it was sort of between the complex menu-based games that we were used to and the sort of open, free-form games that RPGs would later become. And started to become as Arena became, Oblivion became popular. The more free action, sort of directly interacting with your environment sort of games, as opposed to, you know, having to do everything with menus, like with this. And then Skyrim came out, and that was even more freeform. It basically took out role-playing almost entirely from the game, in terms of like stats and bonuses and stuff like that, to the degree where you can't even customize character stats. All characters have the same basic speed, strength, intelligence, and wisdom. Everything else is just modifiers on top of that. And there's nothing wrong with that, it's just another way of playing RPGs, and honestly, I like that too, because it's very freeing. You know, it's just basically a way to play a character that you want to play. And I think that the fact that there's such diversity in the Elder Scrolls games really speaks to the developer's ability to experiment, and I think it speaks to the diversity of players there are in the RPG setting. You know, for as much as fucking Gamergate caused controversy about diversity in gaming, honestly, gaming is one of the most diverse mediums there are. And, you know, there's all kinds of crazy stuff you can find, especially in older games like this. Oh, we leveled up. I see you have strengthened your arm and your mind, Rodney. It is time we began this journey. This is the Staff of Chaos, the one item that can open the door between this world and the dimension in which the Emperor has been banished. Tharn used this item to destroy my corporeal form when I tried to warn the Council. He knew that the Staff of Chaos was nigh indestructible, having been made from the essence of the land itself, but in that he found the key. As the land is split, so did he shatter the staff into 8 perfectly formed pieces. These he scattered across the realm. I have been able to divine the location of the first piece, a place called Fang Lair. It is said that Fang Lair was originally built by the dwarves of Kragan. Legend has it that a great worm drove the dwarves from their land of the dragon's teeth, and took the lair for itself. I only wish I knew the exact location. Perhaps there are sages or scholars who would know of this place. Somewhere in its dank depths lies the first piece of the Staff of Chaos. I wish you well, Rodney. I do not think Tharn knows of your escape, but I can do little else in this form. I have tried to obscure your identity with a spell, but I do not know how well it will hide you. Take care, for Tharn may be searching. Go forth with the blessings of the true Emperor, and myself. So yeah, when people ask me why I still play the older Elder Scrolls games, I mostly just tell them because there are no other games like them. Okay. You know, there's an appealingly slapdash approach to the role-playing in Arena. You know, you get quests by going to taverns and asking the bartender if they have any jobs. You know, if you have enough of a reputation, rulers of the land will give you more important quests, but it's still the same basic thing. You just literally walk straight up to the king or the noble, whoever in the palace, and they just straight up give you a quest out of nowhere. You know, and like there's a mages guild in every town, no matter how small it is, which you know, is completely ridiculous, especially given how ignorant a lot of people are to magic in the Elder Scrolls games. Like, you know, magic is a pretty powerful force in the Elder Scrolls setting, but alarmingly, a lot of people are super ignorant to how it works. So, which is one of the reasons why I really prefer the older games, because they really stuck with that concept that not everyone is a spellcaster, and very knowledgeable spellcasters are extremely powerful, like Jagar Tharn. Whereas in like the later games, it kind of feels like everybody knows, you know, everybody knows a healing spell, everybody knows a fire spell, and that doesn't make any fucking sense. Because why would a simple farmer have a healing spell? You know, it kind of makes sense that they would have like a cantrip, like in Dungeons and Dragons, that heals like maybe 1d4 spell points. But in Skyrim, even your most unintelligent character starts with a healing spell that basically takes them up to full capacity health, at least at lower levels. And the Argonians get this Hiss Skin ability that renders them basically indestructible against anything other than a giant or a dragon. It's fucking bullshit, and I love Argonians, but it drives me crazy how fucking the later games, they just don't know how to use them. You know, like in Arena, even though they look ridiculous and they're basically just black-skinned humans, they're interesting because they swim faster and they tire less easily in the water. You know, whereas in Skyrim, it feels like they just don't know how to use them. I guess because there aren't a lot of bodies of water in the frozen wastes of Skyrim. I don't know. What am I talking about? But yeah, the series has evolved so much, and I think it's really interesting analyzing how the games have changed over the years, because like I said, they keep trying new things. I'm sorry, I promised myself I would talk about something different for a little while, but I don't know. What should I talk about instead? You know I tend to talk about like the really technical aspects of the game, and not everybody's super into that, but it sort of comes from, I don't know, I guess it comes from having grown up with video games since like the 90s, and it comes from watching games evolve from like old DOS computers and dial-up internet connections to the sprawling, huge open worlds that can take up terabytes of data that we have today. You know, it's such an interesting process watching games go through such an evolution. And I got really interested in just watching as games developed and became something that, like, let's be honest, we couldn't have predicted. Who would have thought in the 90s that we would have something like Skyrim? You know? Can I even equip tower shields? I'm not sure. Nope. Man, bards really don't have... I felt like bards had way more options in terms of weapons, but man, I must be remembering that wrong. In Daggerfall, bards are totally bullshit, by the way. They call them jacks of all trades, being trained in combat and stealth and magic, but they're basically thieves. One of their primary skills is pickpocketing, you know, which I guess makes sense in context, but then their only combat skill is short blades, and that's not combat, that's thievery. You know, you can't compare the two. And I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense. Although I guess it's not as bad as burglars, who accidentally were given an attribute where they can only wear plate mail, whereas it's pretty obvious that what they intended to do was have them not be able to wear plate mail.